The defense of "it's just a smart contract, bro" did not work with the Department of Justice in the case of Tornado Cash. When the Tornado Cash smart contract was placed on OFAC's list of banned persons last year, it did seem strange. If Tornado Cash was simply an autonomous smart contract existing on the blockchain, you could much more easily steelman its case to exist without sanctions from authorities. However, there was a team running Tornado Cash as a for-profit business and investing time to operate it themselves. And that's where the legal problems came in for the Tornado Cash team. In terms of how they were caught, encrypted messages between the three co-founders were turned over to the authorities, presumably by the third co-founder who escaped charges and who is identified only as CC1. These messages are pretty damning. They talk about how they should sell a fantasy to their investors, about how they should not publicly disclose their ownership over Tornado Cash. After the Axie Infinity hack drained $620 million from the Ronin network and plowed many millions of dollars through Tornado Cash, they talked about how shit may be hitting the fan. And later on, when the link to North Korea was revealed, they talked about how they were going to be fucked. So these messages are pretty salacious. If Tornado Cash had been an autonomous program that was simply able to operate on its own, I for one would support its right to exist without going after the founders. However, Tornado Cash's founders were actively involved and profiting from its operation. And when you siphon many hundreds of millions of stolen funds through that type of a business, you are going to have legal problems. There's two elements where they ran afoul of the law. First, they were hosting a centralized website paid from their corporate account to support the smart contract through a UI. Second of all, they created a DAO-based token called Torn, which they issued to themselves and profited from to the tune of almost $8 million. And they made the sales of Torn token behind the scenes through an illicit Binance account linked to a third party without telling anybody. The way Tornado Cash worked, you would send a specified amount of Ether into a Tornado Cash pool, either a 10th, 1, 10, or 100 ETH, and there were 4 separate pools for each of those amounts. Those amounts were important because you would see only the same amount of ETH going into and out of the pool. And with thousands of transactions, you would not be able to associate deposits with withdrawals. It effectively broke the link between those transactions. In order to withdraw your funds, you would have to use a secret note that you received upon deposit, and that secret note would be known only to you. Implementation of the withdrawal process is part of what undermined the autonomy of the Tornado Cash system. To make a withdrawal, your wallet would require some Ether to already be in it. And how do you get a wallet funded without compromising your anonymity? To get around this problem, the founders of Tornado Cash developed a relayer system. Effectively, you could pay somebody to serve as a go-between, and they would redeem your funds to a specified wallet, a fresh wallet that could not be traced. In order to run a relayer node and qualify for selection through the UI, you would have to stake 300 Torn tokens. These are tokens that the founders issued, 800,000 each to themselves. Torn tokens wound up capturing any economic value that Tornado Cash generated. And this was very much a for-profit enterprise. They even had an unspecified venture capital fund on board as an early investor. Interestingly, when the founders were discussing building compliance tools into Tornado Cash, their venture capital partners said that they didn't think that there would be a market for that type of feature. Good for the venture capital people that they are able to remain anonymous for now. The right to privacy and a reasonable degree of anonymity are important to preserve. However, when you've just committed a crime in broad daylight, then you don't really have a right to remain anonymous. And those that aid and abet your anonymity actively are culpable for that crime. There's very much a difference between remaining anonymous and committing a crime in public and then trying to evade justice. Now, perhaps Tornado Cash was simply too good at providing anonymity to its users. Protocols that depend on pseudonymous addresses would fundamentally be broken by forcing KYC requirements upon them. However, if a North Korean hacking group is taking hundreds of millions of dollars through your mixer, there do need to be some measures that law enforcement has available in order to trace those funds. One idea for a service like Tornado Cash could be implementing a time-bound tracking window. The operators of a mixer protocol could rotate in private keys that would enable them to decrypt meta information that would allow authorities to trace transactions through the service. To follow this idea a bit further, if you were to decrypt someone's meta information, that transaction should be publicly broadcast on chain ideally, so people would have security in knowing whether they're being surveilled. To summarize Tornado Cash, you had a service that was actively aiding and abetting criminals, that the founders were actively maintaining, and they didn't give themselves any controls to aid authorities while they were profiting from the operation of said protocol. If you're building a service that's being weaponized by criminals, and you're actively maintaining that service, and you're profiting from that service, you are in for a bad time with the authorities. If you're interested in reviewing details of the criminal indictment, I've recorded a full audio narration that you can listen to right here. We're also doing fundraisers to support victims of Celsius Network, which you can check out right here. Thanks for listening. Catch you later.